Ciao a tutti, oggi siamo qua a Londra con due compagni del Partito Comunista di Gran Bretagna, marxista-leninista, per parlare di Brexit. Questo evento che crea tanta confusione, soprattutto a sinistra nel nostro paese, e non si comprendono le ragioni di questo evento. Lo si classifica come un evento di destra, quando in realtà è stata la reazione della classe lavoratrice britannica al peggioramento delle condizioni di vita che l'appartenenza a questa organizzazione, l'Unione Europea, con le sue politiche neoliberiste ha portato. Siamo con Cristina e Dan. Hi guys, welcome.
Thank you.
So, first question for you. What does the Brexit mean for the British working class?
I think Brexit for the British working class means essentially a break from the status quo. I think that was the main reason that the working class voted in the majority for Brexit. They had seen that their lives were getting worse. There was no help from government, there was no help from the EU. So during the campaign for Brexit, they were being told about how wonderful the European Union was, how much it was helping them and enriching them, but they had no jobs. They had a lack of housing, cost of living was going up. So there was no material benefit in their lives from being in the European Union. So essentially the vote for Brexit was a big vote against the continued deterioration of their lives. Now, whether or not actually lives of British workers improved after Brexit remains to be seen. Obviously there's a lot of forces working against that. Leaving a big imperialist club doesn't come without consequences. But we're already seeing some things in the form of rising wages for people in the haulage industries, food processing, farming. There's actually a massive spike in wages because they need more workers now. So there are opportunities, if the British government takes them or not, we'll see. But there are opportunities to actually provide more jobs, better paying jobs for the British working class. What we really need, though, is an organised working class that can actually fight to secure those rights for workers, fight to secure better paying conditions. Otherwise, we could see life getting worse for British workers.
Thanks, Dan. And Christina, was the ruling class expecting that result, and what was the reaction to the result?
Well, I don't think the ruling class expected that result. As a Greek person myself, a Greek working in this country and being a member of the British working class, because I've been working in this country for over 21 years now, and having the insight of what happened in my native country when we had the referendum for the option to allow things to stay as they were, as Dan said, the status quo of being within the European Union or no. I've been through the experience of the 61% of Greek voters voting no. And totally understanding that this dilemma was formed by a government that was not having the intention to leave the European Union, I've also seen the feeling of the people who were terrorized about the eventuality of leaving Europe and running out of everything, not being able to buy anything. I saw the same kind of rhetoric being spread by the mainstream British media, the same kind of terror. If you vote out of the European Union, we will not have toilet paper, we'll run out of food. We are so totally dependent on the benevolence of this club that we will be nothing if we leave. So I've seen the attitude of the ruling class, both in my native Greece and in Britain, and I would say, no, they were not expecting it. We are aware that members of the British ruling class, for their own interest, capitalist interests, might have wanted Brexit, because we see there is a conflict between finance capital and some industrial capital. However, they did not expect this result. And they did not expect this result to happen twice in this country, because do not forget they did everything not to implement the Brexit. However, the people voted twice to have a Brexit. That means that even in the beginning that was a reaction of anger and despondency, like a vote of rebellion, of revolt. The second time was really conscious. We want our voice heard. What kind of democracy is that does not take our referendum into account? So having this double experience, of course it would be completely hypocritical of a person like me who supported the people in my country of leaving the European Union, a person who has seen what Europe does to countries like Italy and Greece, turning us into dead colonies, organizing concentration camps for the refugees in villages and in islands that are funded by the European Union, that is causing these wars and these refugees to come in the first place. It would be completely hypocritical to want to stay in this European Union, in the country where I work, just for some easy benefits of flying cheaply to Greece. I suffer like every other person, working class person, immigrant, comes in this country and I suffer from the same consequences. But it's not a Brexit's fault. What happens is that Brexit makes those contradictions in capitalism even more evident. So I would say, support the people who live here, because seeing it from Italy or from Greece, the decision of Brexit is not completely clear. It's not going to be automatic, like Dan said, that without a leadership, without a movement, Brexit cannot become a cause for socialism. However, if we don't listen to the people who work in this country, and we cannot talk as Greek communists or Italian communists, we cannot know unless we listen to what the people working here say. So they said no to the European Union. Does this mean, do we have to believe the British ruling classes that said that these people are racist, or they don't want immigrants? Look at us, we're immigrants and we support Brexit. So where this argument is completely out of the window.
Thank you very much, Christina. We have seen that all the dramatic scenarios, post-Brexit scenarios of lack of medicine, food, so far have not happened. The only disruption that is now occurring is the fuel supply. Can you explain us what's happening? Is there actually a shortage of fuel, or what's going on?
Well, to talk about shortages more generally quickly, they said we're going to have shortage of medicine, all these other things, but really the crisis in the NHS is serial lack of investment, a lack of non-privatisation, essentially, of the NHS. So this drive to privatise the NHS has meant that our health service is critically lacking in necessary doctors, nurses, beds. That's the shortage that the NHS is facing. That's been because successive governments, Tory and Labour, have been deliberately driving the services down, making them worse, and then using that as an excuse to privatise them and telling the public this will be better if we have private companies managing these things. As we know, capitalism has crises after crisis, and that's simply what's happening with the majority of these shortages. Regarding the fuel shortage, there is no real fuel shortage. What has happened is that, for whatever reason, British Petroleum and some media sources have said that they're worried about fuel shortage. And this is all part of the Project Vera, essentially, that we're still getting after the implementation of Brexit, telling people we're having shortages, we're running out. Maybe BP just wanted to make some record profits in that week. But essentially all the fuel suppliers are saying we have enough fuel, we're delivering it. They even have relatively similar amounts of HGV drivers, lorry drivers to transport the fuel as they did a month ago. So this shortage has been actually caused by the spike in demand, because people thinking there's going to be a shortage, everyone rushing to the fuel stations and filling up their cars. The system isn't designed for everyone to refill their cars to the brim at the same time. The same we saw with the supply chain problems at the start of the pandemic. As soon as we stopped having regular container ships, regular deliveries from around the world where Britain buys all the goods it needs, and there was that fear from among the population during the pandemic that we need to stock up because we're not going to be allowed out, the supply chain might be disrupted, so everyone went to stock up, and capitalism operates now on very short supply chains. It's all last minute. Deliveries come in as soon as they're needed. Supermarkets no longer have stock rooms at the back. Lorries have to come in every night. So it's a very vulnerable system to any kind of delay or disruption. And it's very vulnerable to, as we've seen, a pandemic, if there was a war, if there was any other emergency or crisis. We actually live in a very fragile system. Because that system has been designed to reduce operating costs and maximise profits. And so these are all really faults of our capitalist system we live in, that is not designed to provide people with what they need, to ensure they need it, but to drive up the profits for these companies that operate these services and sell these goods.
Thank you, Dan. Same in Italy with the cuts of the national health system are actually caused by that imposes through the treaty caps, very low caps for public expense. So yeah, it's a very fragile argument saying that now NHS is not looking good before Brexit when all the caps have started way before when we
I remember in the elections a few years ago when there was the coalition coming to power, and they were saying they wanted to spend money on infrastructure and social services, and they were threatened with the European Union because under the European Union rules you're not allowed to spend something like more than 2% of GDP per year or something like that. So the European Union was threatening Italy with fines and sanctions for trying to spend money building infrastructure and spending on its own people. And the same in France, when Macron tried to buy off the Gilets jaunes with his €100 payouts essentially to the French people. That was getting him in hot water with the European Union because that was sending France's spending on the public too high. So that's a very clear example of how the European Union is very much not interested in the welfare of the people of Europe, but is interested in controlling their fiscal mechanisms and their economic aspects.
Yeah. This is a tricky one. We'll see who wants to answer. Do you think that British ruling class is somehow trying still, after several years, to reverse the result of the referendum? Because this continuous blame on Brexit that we hear from every side for any possible problem, even if it's completely unrelated, sounds like there's a plan.
Well, my understanding is that despite what we see as a unity of their class interests, in their class interests, this unity is very fragile. So the British ruling class is not united. We see different tendencies. And this is not only a phenomenon that's happening within the British ruling class. The ruling class globally is fragmenting and dividing. That is an opportunity for us to employ the weaknesses of the ruling class. It is a system in crisis. Capitalism finds itself in crisis. When there is crisis, there are more tendencies and more fragmentation within the ruling class as to how they will get rid of it. Is it going to be through a new imperialist war, a drive war against China and Russia? What are the sides of the British ruling class that want and will unite towards a drive to war? Are they going to be, which camp are they going to take? So that's a fragmentation that can work to the benefit of our organizing the working class, basically. However, as we know, the capitalist interests unite in what Dan described as easy profit, short term, without any long-term investment or planning. And that's going to be their downfall. What we see is not to be blamed on Brexit. Is not going to be blamed, should not be blamed on the pandemic. Even if all that creates what they see as a perfect storm, this is the effect of years of disinvestment and austerity and neoliberalism. For us, it is an opportunity to talk, to seek to pinpoint those huge contradictions that get highlighted by this collapse that is due to lack of planning. what we saw, the deaths, the numbers of deaths that we saw in Britain should not be forgotten. We have suffered, one of the countries that has suffered the most losses. Why? Is it Brexit to blame for that? No, it's capitalism's lack of planning. So, the ruling classes failed to plan. Short-lived, short-term and short-sighted need for profit is bringing the downfall. And because of this crisis, a new cycle of hostility, aggression towards China, China's power raising. So, the British ruling class should not be seen as one compact thing, again, different interests conflicting, and a chance for us to benefit from this rotation in bringing the working class of different countries together.
I think if I can just add on to that, what the ruling class has done throughout Brexit is we've seen all the delays, all the extensions. This was an attempt by two parties where the majority of the ruling class in Britain and in the European Union didn't actually want to split up. So it's been a very acrimonious divorce. But what they've been trying to do is work out how can we keep the economic arrangements, and trade deals, etc. of the European Union if we have to jettison the political and other relations between the EU and Britain. So we can see that their primary concern is the economic relation. And I think equally in the media, they've been able to, and the government has been able to use Brexit as the new scapegoat. Before, the European Union was the scapegoat. We can't do this because of European Union rules. We can't make your lives better. We can't have jobs. It's not because we moved your factory to another country, etc., etc. It's because of the European Union. So this has become the new scapegoat, Brexit. We can't do this because of Brexit. Your life is crap because of Brexit. It's not because of capitalism. Not because we have a tiny minority of ultra-wealthy people that control society in this country, that siphon off all the wealth of this country, hide it in tax havens, etc. It's because of Brexit. So it's going to continue as another excuse for as to why society cannot be improved.
Thank you, Dan. So, what spaces and what opportunity gives Brexit to the working class in Britain?
I think we have more space for maneuver. As I said, more opportunities to point to the contradictions of how capitalism functions, how it uses labor coming from abroad and exploits it, like in this so-called crisis of fuel, where they actually had to urgently have visas for workers to come from the European Union. This would not be needed if the government took the decision to raise the salaries and employ people who are already in the country. So, you see, we can turn these contradictions into an argument for independence and sovereignty for the working class, and for demands for a rise in the salaries, dignity for the workers who are already in the country. And this is not a nationalistic argument. It involves people who are already living in the country from other nations. You must not forget that this is a nation that's built by other nations. We have to remember that the people who use Brexit as a scapegoat are the ones who want the status quo to continue undisturbed. We as communists want to show, discuss those contradictions. We don't want to smooth things over with more exploitation. We want to make clear demands for the independence, sovereignty, and rights of the working class. That involves people like you and me working and living in this country. So it is not a racist, nationalistic argument. It gives dignity and room for maneuver for the people who are already working here, who want to unionize, make new, more radical demands for their work.
Absolutely. Sounds like a great opportunity, actually, yes. So, I move back to l'Italian. Grazie mille a tutti per l'ascolto. Speriamo che questa intervista sia stata interessante e chiarisca le idee su tanti punti della Brexit che sono poco chiari in Italia. Vi salutiamo da Londra in questa bella giornata di sole e abbasso l'udito.
Abbasso.